What's cracking, everybody? My name's #NoRegrets, and I'm bringing you a Mistweaver Monk PvP guide. Alright, first things first. So why would you want to play a Mistweaver Monk? Well, let's take a look at it. First of all, they're actually amazing RBG healers. They're great for RBGs. They're one of the most high-demand healers for RBGs. And if they're played correctly, they can output a lot of healing for that entire RBG. They're not so great for arenas, but they're still doable. They're not the best healers, but they're not the worst either. However, that being said, there is a certain skill cap involved. There's a lot of things you need to know. There's a lot of things that a lot of people don't realize, and a lot of tricks that a lot of people don't realize either. So, the first thing we're going to take a look at are going to be your talents. So you're going to have several choices throughout here. For your first tier, you're going to have Celerity, Tiger's Lust, and Momentum. Momentum, not really going to be useful. The speed increase is not that great. But Celerity and Tiger's Lust are actually amazing. Now, it's going to be up to you which one you want to take. Tiger's Lust is going to offer you a little bit more utility in the form that you can cast it on not only yourself, but others. But Celerity also can provide you a little bit of extra mobility and allow you to break roots and snares a lot more often. Or just snares, actually, excuse me. But it also reduces the cooldown of your roll or Chi Torpedo, which is great. Your level 30 talents. You can take Chi Wave, but it's not that great. Like, I wouldn't recommend it. You can take Zen Sphere for arenas. I would probably say it's a little bit better in terms of if one person is getting focused, but I would say the one that you want to default to all the time is going to be Chi Burst. Chi Burst offers amazing healing because you can target an entire group of people and hit every single one of them and do some really good burst healing, because believe it or not, it actually does do some fairly decent healing. Now, your level 45 talents. Power Strikes is garbage, and so is Ascension. The reason being is that Power Strikes, it's great for PvE, but it doesn't offer you the on-demand healing and on-demand chi that you need. Same thing goes for Ascension. It's actually not preferred for either PvE or PvP. And the increased spirit isn't really going to do you much. And neither is that extra 1 chi. Chi Brew is amazing though. Has lots of uses. You can use it to chain together a great burst healing output or a great on-demand healing, because Mistweavers have a little bit of a learning curve when it comes to how much chi you want to keep on you at a time and how much you want to be spending during a fight. So Chi Brew allows you to basically recover from bad situations, or basically negate a bad situation before it even happens. On to your level 60 talents. For me, Leg Sweep is going to be the default always. I absolutely love Leg Sweep, keeps melee off of you, and it also makes a great stun if you want to extend and get a chain CC going on a healer or something in an arena. That being said, you do have to extend to use it. It is not a range, you have to be within melee range, so use it at your own risk, but I absolutely love the ability. Charging Ox Wave, it's kind of the same thing as Leg Sweep, except the stun doesn't last as long. It only lasts for 3 seconds, but it's also a range stun. But you have to aim it. So it is dodgeable. So keep that in mind. It's useful, but I would not say it's as good as Leg Sweep. I'd say Charging Ox Wave is a little bit more useful in BGs when people are grouped up, but definitely not arenas. Same thing with Ring of Peace. Ring of Peace is not my favorite. I actually don't really like running it unless I'm in an RBG and the BG leader actually requests it from me. But the great thing about it is you can place it on a melee and they can run into a huge group, and everybody that's within that circle as long as they do something, some sort of spell, ability, anything that's harmful, it will incapacitate them for up to 5 seconds. But it's an incapacitate, so that'll break on damage, but it can give you some leniency in certain situations where, say it's a flag carrying map, and they run into the flag carrying room, and it just stuns everybody around there, and then they can pick up the flag. But I don't like it. It's not reliable, so I stick to Charging Oxwave or Leg Sweep. Level 75 talents, you're going to either pick Healing Elixirs or Diffuse Magic. Dampen Harm, it just doesn't come out to be the same as the other two in terms of the damage mitigation and the healing capabilities. So I usually will default to Healing Elixirs, and the only time I'll use Diffuse Magic is if I'm in an arena and it's a Mage Cleave or Shadow Cleave, something where there's a lot of magic damage going out often. But I really like to stick with Healing Elixirs for the simple reason of it's every 18 seconds, it's a 15% heal. So if you do it correctly, it's a godsend. Your level 90 talents, Rushing Jade Wind, it just costs way too much mana. It's really good for PvE if you know what you're doing, but for PvP, it's just not worth it. Invokes Wind, it's alright. I wouldn't say that you should take it though, because it will break CCs, especially in arenas. So I would say for most of the times you're going to default to Chi Torpedo. It's great because it gives you that extra distance to move. Plus, once you get it down, you can actually, basically, depending on how you jump before you use it, you can determine exactly how far you want to go. For your level 100 talents, Breath of the Serpent, absolutely worthless in PvP. Never take it. Chi Explosion, I haven't experimented with it much, but I would say that there is some use to it, because at some point you can actually use this in an arena where there's a shaman that keeps purging, because your heals, all of your heals basically, can be purged off the target. So Chi Explosion can be fairly useful for that, but I haven't experimented with it much, so I'm not very well versed with it, so I could be completely wrong there. But if I were to be in a situation where I knew my stuff was going to get purged a lot, I'd probably switch to Chi Explosion. Pool of Mists. This is going to be your default talent. The reason being is, yes, Renewing Mist is not that great of a heal, but, and here's the but, it gives you a lot of free chi generation. A lot of it. Plus, your Renewing Mist is kind of a purge protection over your Enveloping Mist. So, as long as you keep this up on your target, they're going to have to purge at least 2 things to get the what buff they want to get off that target. So that's going to cover it for the talents. Your talents are pretty straightforward. There's not a whole lot of deviation. Really, the only ones that you're going to switch out is going to be your level 100 talents and your 75 talent. That's about it. Everything else is probably going to look exactly like this for almost every single comp that you come up against. So now, let's take a look at our glyphs. For glyphs, there are a few interesting glyphs that you might need to take. In fact, there are some that I would say are completely mandatory. Number 1 mandatory glyph for me is Glyph of Life Cocoon. Absolutely needed. It's amazing because of the simple fact that if you get stunned and one of your DPS is in a bad situation or you're getting trained while you're stunned, you can pop Life Cocoon right on you right then and right there. But you need to be careful with that, because a lot of teams love to switch to the Mistweaver after he pops his bubble. So you need to know when to pop it and when not to. But being able to cast it while you're stunned is an absolute godsend. The second mandatory glyph for me is Glyph of Freedom Roll. Now, the reason why I take this is because it basically allows me unlimited mobility. Because that's a snare that I can break every 15 seconds. And I have 3 charges of that. So it's absolutely amazing. That coupled with my Transcendence Transfer, unstoppable in arenas, especially against melee. Melee absolutely hate playing against a Mistweaver because of how good we are at getting around the battlefield. Now, your last talent that I take usually is a Glyph of Zen Focus. I personally view this as a mandatory glyph, because sometimes there's those situations where you need to get some healing off and you cannot risk getting interrupted. So being able to pop Thunder Focus T and being immune to all silence and interrupt effects for 5 seconds, that's amazing, especially since Thunder Focus T is on a 45-second cooldown. 45 seconds. That means you're immune to CC 5 seconds, almost a little bit under every minute. That's absolutely amazing. No other healer has that kind of capacity. So, to me, all 3 of those major glyphs are mandatory. However, if I'm not playing a melee team, I might switch out Glyph of Freedom Roll for detoxing, especially if I'm playing against a comp that has a lot of dots that need to be cleansed, such as Rock Comp or anything like that. I'll usually default to detoxing. Other than that, I would recommend Glyph of Paralysis if you want to try and chain CCs together. Like, trying to make sure that their healer is out of the fight for good as often as possible, or a DPS that keeps training you. But I would not recommend taking the glyph if you know one of your partner's CCs will DR with paralysis. Because at that point, it's just better for you to focus on healing. Those are about the only real useful glyphs that I would say for PvP, as far as the Mistweaver is concerned. So the next thing I'm going to talk about here are going to be your gearing and your stat priorities. So for me, I like to stack a lot of versatility. And this is going to change for every single healer out there, especially Mistweavers. Some don't see the value of versatility, others do. But I like to stack as much versatility as possible. So right now I'm at almost 12% versatility, which helps a lot on incoming damage. And of course it helps a little bit with my healing. So I definitely like this. So after versatility, then for me it goes haste, multi-strike, crit, and then mastery. Mastery to me is absolute garbage. The healing orbs are only good if people are looking out for them, and most people aren't. The reason why I prioritize haste over anything else is because if you look at it, it increases your attack speed, your spellcasting speed, and there's one other thing. Haste actually reduces your global cooldown as a Mistweaver monk, and that's very, very, very important. When I stack as much haste as possible, I juke interrupts so easily because I can pop Soothing Mist on myself, and then I can instant cast Surging Mist and then move. Or if I have the Chi, I can Soothing Mist, instant Enveloping Mist, and then move. And then usually right after I have casted the ability that I was looking to cast, somebody tries to interrupt me. And then it completely messes their interrupt up. It's a complete juke. It's amazing. To me, there's absolutely no reason not to stack haste over any other stat as a Mistweaver. It just makes your life so much easier. Multi-strike. Obviously, you want multi-strike because of our passive, which is, let me find it really quick. Is it Jade Mist? Yes, it's Jade Mist. So, when you gain 5% more multi-strike from all sources, that's your attuned stat. That is definitely something that you want, because with this passive, you have a chance equal to your multi-strike that when you use a Renewing Mist or Rising Sun kick, it doesn't use up a charge, and it doesn't go on cooldown. So, with this, you can potentially... you can increase your chi output exponentially. You can make up so much chi that sometimes you don't know what to do with, and that's very important for the Mistweaver, seeing as our mana regen is tied to our chi generation and our chi spending. So, I'm going to go ahead and move to a different location, and we'll talk about the healing priorities and the tricks that I personally use. Alright, so let's talk about your rotation. The number one thing that you want to make sure that you always have up is your Summon Jade Serpent statue. Lots of people forget about this, sometimes I forget about it, but it basically takes your Soothing Mist and doubles its healing, because it gives you 2 Soothing Mists instead of 1. Now, the second thing you want to do is you want to build and spend chi. And you kind of want to do that all the time, because, number one, as you build chi, it allows you to spend it on your big heal that is Enveloping Mist. And Enveloping Mist is great because it heals for a lot, but it also makes it so that your Soothing Mist healing is increased by 30% on that target. But when you spend chi, every 4 that you spend, you gain 1 stack of Mana Tea. And that stacks up to 20 times. And not only that, but every stack that you gain, you have a chance to generate an extra stack. And Mana Tea is your main source of regaining mana. The way it works is every 0.5 seconds, as you're channeling it, you gain 3 times your unbuffed spirit in mana. So that's kind of a very, very important mechanic to know. So usually, how I do it is going into a match, I'll drop my serpent statue in a spot that I know it'll hit multiple people or have a chance at hitting multiple people. And then as soon as the door opens, I'll go ahead and I'll hit, well, not usually soon, but as soon as I get in a position, I'll go with an Expel Harm, and then I'll double Renewing Mist. So that way I have 3 stacks of chi, and I can use my Enveloping Mist right there. Now, there's a few ways of generating chi. Number one, and probably the easiest, is Renewing Mist, because it's not expensive, but it's not cheap. It's kind of in the middle. But it's free chi, basically, because you have 3 stacks, and every time you use it, it gives you 1 chi. The other 2 ways are you can cast Surging Mist, which is a cast time, quote-unquote, and it actually is kind of an expensive heal. It's about 4% of your mana, so you only really want to use that in spots where you're kind of in a pinch and you need to get some extra healing on a target. Your final way of doing it conventionally is Expel Harm. I absolutely love this spell. It's 1% of your mana. It's practically free. It is free chi and it heals you. So it's amazing. Now, there's 2 other ways of generating chi. Number 1, you can generate it with Chi Brew. And Chi Brew is unique in the fact that it's off the global cooldown. And the other thing is, it gives you 2 chi. And not only that, but it gives you 1 stack of Mana Tea. It's on a 1-minute recharge, and there's 2 stacks. So I kind of try and save those to points where I actually need them for some burst healing or something along those lines. Now, the other way that I generate chi, because I'm a Blood Elf, is Arcane Torrent. Arcane Torrent is great. It serves as not only an interrupt and a silence, but as a chi generator, because every time you use it, every 1.5 minutes, you gain 1 chi. That's free chi. So, you can generate your 3 chi in multiple ways, but it all pretty much spends the same, because you don't want to use Uplift because it doesn't heal for enough, and it's only really useful in raids. So you want to use it on Enveloping Mist. Now, I know a lot of people are like, but wait, I'm a Mistweaver, and one of my main heals is Soothing Mist. Doesn't that make me easier to interrupt? No, actually, it doesn't. It's great. I love Soothing Mist, because you can generate your stacks or not your stacks, but you can generate your chi. And instead of casting something, like usual, you can pop a Soothing Mist really quick, and then pop your instant cast Enveloping Mist. Instant cast. It's amazing. And the funny thing is, when you have enough haste, when you do a Soothing Mist and then cast an ability in the move, it's usually faster than somebody can react. And when they do react, when they hit their interrupt, you've already stopped casting. So they've wasted their interrupt and you've successfully juked. And it's extremely effective. So what else does a Mistweaver have in its toolkit? So you actually have Chi Burst. Or any of the other 35 talents if you chose to take any of the other ones, or 38 talents, excuse me. But let's be honest, Chi Burst is probably going to be your best bet because of its burst capabilities. So Chi Burst is free, doesn't cost you anything, and not only does it heal, but it also does damage, as you can see there. So it not only helps you, but it helps your teammates who are trying to DPS somebody down. So that's free healing every 30 seconds. Now, the two coolest abilities, in my opinion, are Life Cocoon, which is once you have the 4-set bonus, which I'll show you right now. It's a 55-second cooldown, 200k bubble that not only does a bubble, but it increases all periodic healing received on that target by 50%. That will take somebody from 1% to 100% in less than 5 seconds. Like, probably around 3, and I've done it before. It's amazing. It pisses people off. And when you have it glyphed, you can use it while stunned. What other healer can put a bubble on themselves or other people while they're stunned? Not a whole lot. So, the final ability that I think is amazing, and that really rounds out our toolkit, is Thunder Focused E. On its own, it's alright. It's a 45-second cooldown, doubles the healing of your Surging Mist, or it basically allows your Renewing Mist to jump up to 2 additional times. But when you have it glyphed, you have Aura Mastery every 45 seconds for 5 seconds. That means you are uninterruptible and unsilenceable for 5 seconds out of every 40 seconds. That's great. I don't know another class that can do that. There's no other healer that has that type of capability. So, Mistweavers not only have that, but get this. We get a second CC breaker. Not only do we have our Trinket, but we also have Nimble Brew, which works on most stun effects. Works on stun, fear, and horror effects. And not only that, but when you use it, it reduces the effect of the next one on you within 6 seconds by 60%. So, I don't think a whole lot of healers can say that. So that actually gives you a very well-rounded toolkit that if you know what you're doing, you can be a menace on the battlefield. And then in an arena, you also have an instant cast, Mesmerize or Paralysis, whatever you want to call it, that will stun the target and make them cancel what they're doing until they get hit for a few seconds. And then you have your interrupt, and you have your 5-second stun. So if a Mistweaver is played correctly, it can do a lot of damage and a lot of good. So I'm going to cut this, and I'm actually going to show you some gameplay and show you how I personally play arenas and give you some tips and tricks while in there. Oh, and I almost forgot. What about macros? I don't really use a whole lot of macros, actually, but there's a few that I think are something that you should definitely look into, especially for RBGs. My favorite macros are really mouse over macros, especially for pretty much all my heals, because it allows me to switch targets really fast, especially in an RBG. But those are pretty much my favorite macros are the mouse over macros, especially for Life Cocoon. A mouse over macro for Life Cocoon I feel is a lot better than, say, a arena target macro, but that's just my personal preference. The two macros that I say that you should definitely get for sure is one to change your stance. So I have one for Stance Dancing, which basically allows me to switch from Stance of the Wise Serpent into Stance of the Red Crane. Or, I think it's the Red Crane. No, Stance of the Spirited Crane, excuse me. And basically what that allows me to do is in a deep dampening match, it allows me to kind of put a lot more pressure on somebody, because at a certain point, healing is not going to do anything anymore in a dampening match. It's just not worth it, and at that point it just becomes a DPS race. So anything I can do to help that out I'll try and do. That's why I have that macro. And plus, if somebody wants to overextend and kind of start attacking me, if there's not a whole lot of spread pressure, I'll switch into Stance of the Spirited Crane, and I will start using Rising Sun Kick and doing some fairly decent damage, because believe it or not, I can hit upwards of 60k with a Rising Sun Kick as a healer. So if a DPS is stupid enough, he can get into a very bad place. The second macro that I would say that is a must-have is a Transcendence Transfer macro. So this basically makes it so that when I'm not pressing anything, like no modification keys, when I just hit my one keybind, which is V in this case, it does the teleport. It allows me to use the actual spell for the transfer. But when I'm holding down shift, it'll put down the actual Transcendence spot. So see right there, put it down, and then when I'm not holding anything, it allows me to use it. So if you see on my bar, you'll see them change icons. So as I'm holding shift, you can see the icon to put the spirit down. And when I let go, you can see the icon to actually do the transfer. So those are really the two macros that I recommend. But other than that, I would suggest maybe trying to get used to using mouse over macros for RBGs. And I almost forgot, there's one other macro that I would recommend actually. And it's for arenas. It's a paralysis macro. And it's an arena target macro. And it just makes your life a whole lot easier in my opinion. It just allows you to switch between arena target 1, 2, and 3 to put paralysis on. And in this case, if I'm not using anything, it'll just go to arena 1. If I'm holding shift, it'll go to arena 2. And if I'm holding alt, it'll go to arena 3. So those are the only macros I use.